Yes, I'm still here, Hollywood. And coming up on today's episode... What was your reaction when you first saw the film?
I just come back from an audition, and there was a theater that had this little kiosk kind of thing outside of it, and they would run the trailer, and it was a trailer for Saturday Night Fever, which I had never seen, and I was just sort of blown away. And then it was one of those, "Hey, are you her? You look like her. Are you her?" And I said, "Yeah," and not sort of, and he went, "It's her. This is her." And I got so freaked out, and I got so scared. I went, "I have to go," and I just sort of went running back.
Is the rumor true that you had just worked on dropping your Brooklyn ease when all of a sudden you had to bring it back again?
So when I went into audition for this part, this wonderful casting director named Shirley Rich said, "I thought you were from Brooklyn." And I said, "I am." She said, "Well, you don't sound like it." I said, "I don't." So she said, "Go home to your family and live with them for a while, and then I'll call you back to meet the director." And so, I called, "Mom, can I?" She says, "Oh, sure, come on, we'll have coffee, it'll be fine. Yeah, come on."
Are you still friendly with John?
John has always been and will always be this incredibly lovely man. I mean, he is such a sweet, caring individual. And even though with all the success, he's incredibly intelligent, but he never takes on this, too good for the room, too good for the, he lives in the moment, and he's stayed very much true to himself.
To many of you, this will sound like ancient history, like the pyramids or Elvis. But these three words, Saturday Night Fever, ruled the movie world in the late 1970s. It made John Travolta a movie star instead of just Vinnie Barbarina. It made the Bee Gees pop icons, and it catapulted today's guest into dramatic actor history. This is Still Here Hollywood. I'm Steve Kmetko. Join me with today's guest, actor from Saturday Night Fever and TV's Angie, Donna Pescow. If you'd like to be more involved with us at Still Here Hollywood, you definitely can. Just visit patreon.com/stillherehollywood. You can support us for as little as $3 a month. Then you can see who our upcoming guests will be and submit questions for them. You can even tell us what stars you want us to have on as guests. You'll also get exclusive behind-the-scenes info, pics, video, and more. Again, that's patreon.com/stillherehollywood. Thanks for coming in today. I appreciate it. Our little set here.
I'm happy
We're Still
to be
Here
here.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
We're happy you joined us. Tell me, you had just left school when you got the role in Saturday Night Fever, hadn't you?
I was out of school for about a year, not quite, yeah. So
How many auditions had you been on?
this was the first film audition I ever did. I had done theater for the most part. In fact, I think this was the first on-camera anything I'd ever done. And this agent I had at the time was really brilliant in saying, "It's nothing, it's a little role. Don't worry about it. Just, okay."
Well, it was kind of a small role in terms of the big picture, but you did things with it. You won a Golden Globe for that role, didn't you?
I won the New York Film Critics.
New York Film Critics.
Best supporting, yeah. But, I think, you get some of, in your career, you get one of those opportunities where you can really stretch it all out and do what you've been wanting to do. And I was just so lucky to do it so early on. So I wasn't as nervous because I didn't think about, how well the film would do or what all of that would be like. It was just a job. So lucky.
A good job.
A very good job.
Were you surprised at what a huge hit it became?
Oh, yeah. I think everyone was. Even the studio. I don't think anyone thought that it would be such, lightning in a bottle and it just explode that way.
Can anybody explain it?
I'm sure there are people that can explain it better than I can, but I think the film was very much of that era. I think in the 70s there were more sort of, gritty films, art films, films that had really sort of intense storylines, and then when they coupled that with the Bee Gees' music, it was just this incredible recipe for success. But I don't know whether anyone really expected it to be what it became.
I heard Leonard Maltin say not long ago that every movie is a reflection of its time, and that certainly was. John Travolta had just kind of come on the scene with Welcome Back, Kotter. He wasn't the huge star he became and still is. What was it like working with him in the beginning?
Working with John was incredible. He was so generous with making everyone feel comfortable and not feel like they weren't equal in importance. And, he set the tone, I think. And everyone was so much of a team player, and everyone wanted it to be great, and everyone wanted it to be the best they could, do it. And he did something that I always thought was so extraordinary. After every scene, after every take, he would always say, "Are you happy? Would you like another take, or are you happy?" And I was always so amazed that his concern was very genuine, that everyone really felt good about what they put out. They're on film, so couldn't have been better.
I remember quite a while after Saturday Night Fever came out, I went to see John in Get Shorty.
Oh, yeah.
And he has that scene where he dances with Uma Thurman. Well, when he starts dancing, the audience went crazy. And I think it's all because of Saturday Night Fever.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was an extraordinary dancer. And he still is. I did a commercial this past Christmas with him where he's Santa Claus, and it kind of was a Saturday night, they called it Holiday Night Fever. And it was kind of a fun thing. And he still has the moves. He really, it's amazing.
I guess it's not the kind of thing you lose.
I think, it's so ingrained in people that dance,
What kind of disco dancing did they have you do in terms of getting prepped for the role?
I had never been to a disco. And before, I was such a fish out of water. Before we started filming, a lot of us went to the club because it was an actual club. John couldn't go because he was too recognizable, and kind of took it all in and all. And I thought, wow, these folks are really great the kids, were really great dancers, but they were so serious about it. This was not just whatever. They really had routines set, and you could see rehearsed, and really were very, very serious about how their image was perceived on that dance floor.
You've been in so many things, haven't you? Television, film, stage.
Lucky, yeah. Mm-hmm.
How have you maintained your career?
Oh, I don't know. I think luck has a great part of it. I just think so much of it is being really in a good mental place and being available to do what is presented to you and be excited about it. And, I've just been so fortunate to be in so many good projects. And, I think a lot of it has to do with just being on a roll. I mean, I've had down years, where I sort of sit there and think, well, maybe dental hygienist is a good thing, but, I mean, it's a roller coaster. You never know. But I've been really blessed. And I think attitude is a lot of it.
Did you make the right choice of career?
Oh, I didn't have a choice. No. I was such a hammy kid. I don't think, if I would have been a doctor, I would have lost every patient. I just don't think I was cut out to do anything else.
You mean like I'll be right back?
Yeah, I'd love to take out your, appendix, but I have an audition. So, I know.
You were raised in Brooklyn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the character you played, Annette, is from Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Is it true? Is the rumor true that you had just worked on dropping your Brooklyn ease when all of a sudden you had to bring it back again?
It is true. It is. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and they have a very full curriculum, and very much like a lot of conservatories, they have all aspects of getting you ready to do professional work. And they had speech class, and I remember he was a very sort of austere kind of teacher, and he said, if you have a regional accent, you will never work. I'm telling you now, you need to sound very, very much like you come from nowhere, standard American speech. And so all of the, all of these kids, all of us who, some were from Texas, some were from the South, some were from the East Coast, everybody had a regional accent. And we worked very hard to make sure we sounded like we came from nowhere. And I would habitually start to correct myself because I thought it was never going to work. So when I went in to audition for this part, this wonderful casting director named Shirley Rich said, I thought you were from Brooklyn. And I said, I am. She said, well, you don't sound like it. I said, I don't. And I was trying, but it seemed false, because I was so confused at that point what to sound like. So she said, go home to your family and live with them for a while, and then I'll call you back to meet the director. And so, I called, Mom, can I? She says, oh, sure, come on, we'll have coffee, it'll be fine. Yeah, come on. And then there we are. Although I think I was a little bit heavier with the accent that I did for Annette. It was a little bit more intense.
Did you have to work on losing it again?
Not so much. I think I slip in and out of it. And now I think I have to really make sure I don't go there, because when I'm comfortable, I sort of go back into it a little bit.
Get comfortable.
Okay. Sure, no problem.
Tell me about Angie.
Angie was such a sweet story. It was Cinderella, really. And Gary Marshall had a million shows on the air at the time. All these great, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, I think Mork and Mindy. And we were all at Paramount, and we were all like one soundstage next to another. It was like sitcom college. It was kind of amazing. But Angie was, again, this really lovely story that was not silly pie in the face, which I have total respect for silly pie in the face. But this was more of a, a love story in a way, and the, one side of the tracks meets the other side, and blue collar meets white collar, and everything that people could relate to. So it was very sweet.
What was your experience working with or for Mr. Marshall?
Oh, I mean, it was a gift. He had such I know this is going to sound cliche, but he had a sense that all of his shows, people on his shows, it was like a family. And it wasn't, something that you wanted to have to come to. He wanted you to want to be there. And so it was just this lovely vibe all the time. And he hired the best people. So, the writing was great. The production was great. And we had an amazing cast. So, it was really a pleasure.
He was so, I think, naturally funny.
Oh, he pitched this show to me. And, having Gary Marshall pitch a show is a show in itself. And I kept pinching myself thinking, am I really here? Is this really happening? Because he was hilarious. He said, this is a great show. It's a girl, she meets a guy, and he's very rich, and she's very blue collar. She doesn't know how to live in a rich world. And they get a maid, and the maid teaches her how to live there and how to act, and everybody gets along. It's like hilarious.
I think he directed the movie Runaway. Oh, I know he directed the movie Runaway Bride, and with Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. It was supposed to be kind of a distant sequel to Pretty Woman. But I remember going to a screening. It was at Paramount on a Saturday night, and the print was late. And so he stood up before a theater full of people, and he just vamped for about 30, 45 minutes. He was hysterical.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
What talent he had. Great
And
guy.
he loved what he did. So, you know, that was part of what was so appealing. You know, he really, just his heart and soul was so in it.
And his sister Penny,
Brilliant.
brilliant. And I think he directed a number of episodes of Laverne and Shirley, although I'm not positive. I didn't do my research on that part. But I just know he was a great guy.
Oh, amazing. And again, you know, I've had this incredible run of luck with first-time experiences. That was my first TV show. Saturday Night Fever was my first film, you know, and to experience the kind of production, the kind of artistic, full-on scene, you know, in all of it. It was just amazing. You know, I was so blessed and very spoiled very early on. So I just assumed that's how it was going to be all the time.
Au contraire.
En contraire.
How did Saturday Night Fever change your life?
Oh, I went from leaving pictures and resumes to, you know, getting phone calls saying they want to, you know, set up a meeting with you and Dino De Laurentiis. And I thought, do you have the right number? You know, it was just, it was a leap. It made a career happen, you know. And I was really just blessed because I had no clue that, I mean, I knew this was unusual, and I knew that I was really in a world that I didn't quite understand yet. So I was overwhelmed, I think, a lot of the time. And when I look back on it now, I think of it differently because I realized just how spectacular. At the time, I just kept going forward thinking, all right, just get through it and it'll be fine. I was, you know, nervous all the time.
I've had experiences like that.
Yeah.
Usually when I'm dating. Just get through it.
That's it.
You had to do quite a bit in that movie. I mean, you ran the gamut of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
The backseat of a car, a member of your crew, group that you were friendly with in the movie, falls off the bridge and dies. I remember you particularly in that scene because you had to get so emotional that it was very effective.
Thank you.
Do you ever wish you could go back and experience it again?
You know, that's a great question. I was so young and new to it all, and I had such good training. I had graduated from the academy, as I said, and then I worked with Lee Strasberg, and I had wonderful, you know, training, and I was so able to just immerse myself in the work and not think about all the exterior things, whether it'll be successful, what this will do for my career, will it make a lot of money, you know, all of that. None of that was in my thinking because I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't think to think about that. So I was really so into the scenes and the character and what was going on within the film. I don't know if I could do that again because I know too much now, and I'd worry about other things now. And you get not judgmental in a bad way, but you start to almost start thinking about what it's going to look like before you've even done it. So you're working on two different levels. One is like, what'll be, you know, how should I do this and how will it look on film, and what am I doing with the character? You know, where Saturday Night Fever, it was just acting. It was just about that, which was, I don't think there's anything better for an actor. Yeah.
When's the last time you saw it?
You know, it's got to be at least 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, I've seen pieces of it, of course, but just to really watch the whole thing, they did a screening of it at Hollywood Forever. They have these
Oh, yeah, at the cemetery.
yes. And so they asked me to speak and sort of introduce the film. And my son, who was, I guess, 20 maybe. Oh no, wait a minute, he was younger. He came with my husband and I. We all. And this was the first time he'd seen this film on a big screen in its entirety. And that was exciting for me and scary for me all at the same time, because of all these scenes we're discussing. So that's the last time I really saw it where I was emotionally invested in it.
I saw it not too long ago. I don't know why, but I just called it up. Now with television, you can just
Sure.
speak into your remote control and up it comes, which I think is great.
Yeah.
We never had that when we were younger.
No. We had one television, and everybody had to, decide who was going to get their choice of show.
Yeah, and we had to make certain the antenna was in the right direction, and we had a little thing that you used that would rotate the antenna on the roof.
That's so funny.
Hey, and we were the last to get color TV.
We were too.
Yeah. And we'll be right back. What was the whole audition process like for Saturday Night Fever?
It was, from what I remember, they gave us sides, which are just, little pieces of the script, which made very little sense outside of, having the whole script, but nobody is given the whole script at that point in your career, very rarely. And so it was partially the material on the sides and a lot of improvisation, and which I loved. That actually made it better for me. So they'd give you, the first, by the way, we had two different directors. Initially, John Avildsen was supposed to direct it. So I had a few auditions with him. And then when they switched directors and brought John Badham on, I had a few auditions with him. So, it was this interesting process where somewhere in the middle there was a pretty good time factor. So I just assumed it wasn't happening. And again, because I didn't know anything about the movie, and I thought it was some little role, I kept thinking, why are they bringing me in so many times on this little sort of, I'm thinking it's like a walk-on or something. But anyway, so that was, the process was, for the most part, the sides and a lot of improv. Just to get, I think both directors really wanted it to be authentic. And that's what they were going for, to really make sure it was a believable character.
And then Gene Siskel came out and said it's one of the best movies ever made.
Isn't it extraordinary?
And he even bought John Travolta's suit at auction.
He did, yeah.
That kind of help doesn't hurt.
Does not hurt.
One of the biggest critics of the time. What was your reaction when you first saw the film?
Wow.
You must have been nervous that night.
I was blown away. I mean, there's a funny story where I was, I think it took almost a year, I guess, from the time we finished till it was released, or we're close to it. And so, I'm back on, auditioning for Broadway shows and whatever. And I was walking down Broadway, and there was a theater. I had just come back from an audition, and there was a theater that had this little kiosk kind of thing outside of it. And they would run the trailer, like there was a little TV monitor inside, and they'd run a trailer of an upcoming film. And there's a bunch of people standing around it, and I'm kind of thinking, oh. And I made my way into it. And it was a trailer for Saturday Night Fever, which I had never seen. And I was just sort of blown away. And I'm standing there, obviously, people think, she's a little bit over the top here, like looking at all this. And then it was one of those, hey, are you her? You look like her. Are you her? And I said, yeah. And not sort of, and he went, it's her. This is her. And I got so freaked out, and I got so scared. I went, I have to go. And I just sort of went running back. But it was very freaky. It was very, very weird.
Were you friends with Karen Gorney on the set?
No, no, not really. I mean, we were when we'd be there at the same time, but it was very rare because we didn't have any scenes together,
Right, you
except for
played,
that dance scene, obviously at the end. So
And you were competing for the same man, kind
yeah,
of.
but it's really funny because you could do a movie and never meet the other people that are in the film unless you have scenes together. And of course I had met her, and we were able to get to know each other to some extent. But I think I got to know her more after the film. So,
Are you still friendly with John?
yeah. I mean, I don't see him very often, but that commercial that we did last year was sort of amazing because, suddenly we're revisiting that whole world again. And that was kind of spectacular. And, John has always been and will always be this incredibly lovely man. I mean, he is such a sweet, caring individual. And even though with all the success, he's incredibly intelligent, but he never takes on this, too good for the room, too good for the, he lives in the moment, and he's stayed very much true to himself.
Oh, you've been married to your husband, Arnold, for a very long time.
I know.
Tell me about that. The thinking, is, from the outside looking in, that Hollywood is full of divorced people.
Yeah, I know. And we're married, let's see, it will be 38 years. And I think that's a golden anniversary in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, with all of the luck I have had in my career, this is some of the luckiest stuff that ever happened to me, is meeting Arnold and having our son. And that keeps me more grounded and more in touch with reality than anything else. And, I really am one of those people that I love to work, but I also love to go home. And I feel so fortunate that even though he and I have been married all this time, nobody makes me laugh more. Nobody is better company. I can't. During COVID, when everything was shut down, I'd say to him, "Gee, it doesn't feel all that different." I mean, it does, of course, in terms of going out and seeing friends and all that. But I was happy to spend 24/7. And there'd be moments, we'd say, let's take a break. But for the most part, it's still wonderful.
What does Arnold do?
He was in advertising. He had his own agency, and he's a writer. So he, did a lot of very well-known copywriting in various times of his life before he opened up his own agency. So he had a real understanding of this world without being in the same field as me, which was a really good thing.
I would imagine it would be difficult to come home and, having done the same thing, both of you, all day long, you need to get away.
Yeah, I think it's great to know what's going on in someone's work life and what it takes for them to do that, and respect that. But that requires a lot of give and take, and it doesn't always work. Somehow we lucked out. There's always hills and valleys, but I've always said I'm better with him than I'd ever be without him.
Did you keep anything from the film?
Again, hindsight, right? If I would have thought about it, I would have kept that little jacket because it was just such an iconic thing for that character. But no, I didn't. I kept the cross that she wore. If I can do it, I will always ask if I can take one little from each character. But no, I didn't take any of the. I'm sure all of that polyester is still alive somewhere.
Yep. Say, I think I missed it somehow. I don't know how. But I understand you were also in the finale of The Sopranos.
Yes, yes.
What was that like?
That was extraordinary. I had watched that show religiously. I was so in love with that show and the characters and everything about it. And I kept thinking, can't they find something for me, or is in there something I can audition for? And it was just one of those things where, it didn't happen until the very last episode. And it was amazing. That was obviously the show's last production. So it was very emotional for the people that were on that show. And I kind of felt somewhat intrusive because it was such a deep thing for when they would do their last scene and they would leave and everybody would sort of surround them and as the actors kind of left, if this was their last scene, the AD would say, and this is so-and-so's last, and they'd applaud and cry. And it was really amazing to be a part of that. The other side of David Chase was the director of the last episode, so, can't get better than that. And it was just this incredible thing. And I think it was the first time for me, I was in such awe of what was going on. I had to stop myself from being a real fangirl, and just get into it because I was like, oh my God, here it is, the Sopranos apart. This is their living room, and oh my, there's Carmela and there's Tony. I became fangirl, and I had to just sort of talk myself down.
Don't jump.
That's it.
Edie Falco.
Oh, unbelievable.
Nurse Jackie. I loved that show.
Fabulous, right? Yeah.
And she's a good actress.
Oh, she's amazing. And she was so lovely. She was just so lovely. And Jim Gandolfini, everyone was really, and this was their last episode, and I just knew what that must have felt like, and they really extended themselves. It was
kind of like the Mary Tyler Moore Show, where they all walk out hugging each other.
That's so true. That's so true.
What would you tell your younger self about Hollywood?
It changes daily. Life changes daily. Your status changes. That was the hardest thing for me to understand because I was like 22 when I made that movie. I was really, so I had no life experience to base anything on. And I think when you're young and something enormous hits, you have a couple of paths that you can take. One is you get too full of yourself and you sort of become a bit of an ass and you ruin your career, or you listen to advice that is not great, and that could hurt you. I was really lucky that I had very good people taking care of me in that sense. But I think it was hard for me almost after I became well-known, because then when things, sort of lighten up, you're not getting the kind of work or the offers you think, you don't know how to deal with it. You have nothing to base it on. So I know that sounds really nuts, but I think I would tell myself to just take it as it comes and don't expect things to have order. You need order in your life and in your personal life. And then I think you can handle the craziness of the career better.
But the Hollywood mindset is that always in the back of your mind, at least when I was living out here, even just doing TV, I always thought, there's a competition going on. There's always someone out there who wants your job.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And I think it's also, flavor of the month. Things change. It's age. I'm not, there are not as many roles for me now that there were then. And, it's so unpredictable. And people are unpredictable. And the way they behave is unpredictable. And when one of the smartest things someone ever told me was, don't assume you know how a person is going to behave until you spend a little time with them. Don't assume they're in the same mindset you are, because that's I think in life that's a great piece of advice, because you just assume people are going to think like you think. And then when they don't, or they don't behave the same way, you're so blown away by it that it paralyzes you. So
It's hard to regain your footing.
yeah. So that's a life lesson.
The movie was also a big boost to the careers of the Bee Gees.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite song from the soundtrack?
Wow. I always think of that soundtrack really as another character in the film.
It was.
I loved them all. I think the Yvonne Elliman song, If I Can't Have You, really was more sort of Annette's song. But all in all, I think every one of those songs were so great. I still hear Staying Alive on the radio on a pretty regular basis, which is amazing. And at my age, I have a whole new feeling about that song. But it's, I think my favorite song of all, maybe How Deep Is Your Love? That's a beautiful song.
I agree. Do you have a favorite TV show these days?
Oh, boy. With the 8,000 shows that are out there now, wow, I love The Bear. I love, it's like now I've got 30,000 titles going through my, I love the limited series. I was crazy about Ripley when they did the Townsend.
Oh, yes.
That was just brilliant. I love when they take another stab at something that was great and try and sort of revisualize it. I think television, generally speaking now, is better than it's ever been, because you're getting some of the best artists, writing, directing, acting, to now do limited series, so they have more time to really, do a storyline and really push the envelope.
Would you do TV again?
Oh yeah, I'd love to. I still do. I still, put my name out there. But I wouldn't do something I didn't like. There's the luxury. That's success to me. If you can say no to something that you just don't feel like you really want to do for whatever reason, and you can actually, say I'm okay without that check right now. I don't want to do that. That's success. So I'm trying to pick out shows I really, really like to do. I did a Grey's Anatomy last year, and again, that was fun because I've been watching that show for years, and they offered me a lovely role. So I thought, oh, how fun! It's a gift. I take nothing for granted.
What do you do for fun these days?
I have go to podcast. Fun. We travel a little. We just go to shows, go to concerts, whatever comes along. I don't have a major hobby, because I've always I've always thought of my work as the big brass ring at the end of it. So I don't know. I'm just sort of having fun on all of it, with both sides of it, personal, professional.
Not many people can say that.
No, I'm very lucky, very lucky.
In your career, what was the most challenging event for you?
Ooh. Challenging in terms of a role, or in terms of
It's dealer's choice.
Yeah, well, I guess the most challenging personally for me in my career is accepting the fact that I am not going to work, unless I'm doing another series, I'm not going to work 12 months a year, or a lot. I'm going to do more sporadic work. And that's hard at times because you want to do what you love. So that's a big challenge. The other thing I think is deciding if you want to make a big change. Sometimes, Arnold and I will say, it would be nice to move maybe to, someplace that has a beautiful forest or a beautiful beach or something, and just, say goodbye to all of the stress and whatever. And we say, yeah, it's great. And then, it goes away.
It passes.
It does.
Is it true you played the first lesbian on a soap opera?
I did. I had just finished Angie, and the producer and the casting director of All My Children, who I knew, called and said, "Listen, we're finally getting permission to do a storyline, and it was an ABC show, and they'd like to get someone who, not only could, do the role, but who's a little more well-known and kind of make it a little bit of a big guest part." And I'm listening to this, and I'm thinking, okay, tell me about. And they started talking about it, and I was so blown away. I said, oh my God, what an opportunity. I mean, yes, I'd love to. And to break that ceiling, that's extraordinary. And I have to say, if there is a role that was the most rewarding for me in a sense that it touched people and it changed the conception of, just a stereotype, that it opened it up to reality, that would be the role. I would just read this mail from people who felt that they were represented, realistically, and they were no longer this, closeted element of a person that couldn't, be represented at all, and it just sort of opened the doors to wonderful opportunities for the gay community to be represented in a real way. And I just was so grateful to have that opportunity. And it was, I think we did it over 6 weeks, but it aired for a longer period of time. I can't remember exactly, but it was just extraordinary to be a part of that.
Well, it wasn't all that long ago that we were non-existent.
Insane, and being in this industry, you forget that because, people are for the most part themselves, and they don't have to feel like they can't, be themselves in any way and worry. I mean, there was certainly an issue with people that were afraid it would affect their career or whatever. But, I had no, I guess, understanding of how much suffering was going on with people not being able to live who they were. And, really talking to people prior to doing the role and then after doing the role, it was just a horrible time, and then, of course, there was the whole, AIDS situation going on and everything. And, this was my little opportunity to have a voice in it all. So I was grateful and still am,
One last thing, Donna.
Okay.
I hope our paths cross again.
Me too.
Thank you very much. This was delightful.
I thank you. This was great.
Still Here Hollywood is a production of the Still Here Network. All things technical run by Justin Zangerle. Theme music by Brian Sanashin. And executive producer is Jim Lichtenstein.